Welcome everyone to this deep dive. If you follow the global professional golf landscape at all,
You know it was an absolute whirlwind.
oh, absolutely. The week of March 2nd through the 8th, 2026, had pretty much everything. So our mission today is to unpack this massive stack of golf intelligence reports, player leaderboards, and tour press releases that just landed on our desks.
There's a ton to get through, yeah.
Yeah, we are setting the stage for a week that featured dramatic, grinded-out playoffs, historic veteran debuts, and frankly, a boardroom ruling that represents a truly seismic shift in the business of global golf.
Right, and it is great to be here with you all. What a week to dig into. We really have a lot of ground to cover today. You are
Yeah.
going to hear about a $20 million signature event going right down to the wire, an emotionally charged 8-year victory drought finally ending on the LPGA, a 50-year-old rookie just dominating the Champions Tour,
And that massive OWGR ruling.
exactly, a massive official world golf ranking ruling that completely rewrites the commercial landscape of the sport.
Let's start right at the top of the PGA Tour, because the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill Arnie's Place delivered exactly what these elevated limited field events were designed to do.
High stakes, elite fields.
Right. You put the absolute best players against each other for a massive $20 million purse, and you get pure theater. We had Akshay Bhatia taking down Daniel Berger in a thrilling playoff to win the $4 million top prize.
What a finish.
And the leaderboard behind them was a who's who of elite ball strikers. I mean, you had Ludwig Ohnberg and Cameron Young tying for third, and Colin Morikawa finishing right behind them in fifth.
It really was a showcase of premium talent.
Hmm.
But, when you look at Bhatia's performance through the lens of the intelligence reports, the thing that really jumps off the page is his iron play consistency.
Because Bay Hill is brutal.
Yeah, it's notorious for thick rough and those firm, fast greens. It demands a level of precision on approach shots that most courses simply do not ask for. Bhatia proving he possesses that consistency under Sunday pressure has massive implications for you watching his season unfold.
It rockets him up the FedExCup standings.
It does, but more importantly, it puts him firmly on the radar as a legitimate contender heading into major championship season.
I hear you on the iron play, but we really cannot discuss Bay Hill without addressing the massive storyline that unfolded before the weekend even started.
The withdrawal.
Yeah, Rory McIlroy's withdrawal due to a back issue was a genuine shock to the system. And this wasn't just a standard pre-tournament scratch either. For the first time in 13 years, McIlroy stepped away from a tournament after he had already teed off.
13 years. That is an incredible Ironman streak.
Right, when a guy with that kind of history pulls the plug mid-round, it changes the entire atmosphere of the tournament.
It certainly changes the atmosphere, but I'd actually argue it changes the strategic calculus for the rest of his season even more.
How so?
Well, when a player of his caliber, with his specific history of success at Bay Hill, has to walk away because his body won't cooperate, it raises immediate, glaring questions. I mean, we were just weeks away from the major championships.
And he's the defending champion at the Players coming up.
Exactly. A mid-tournament withdrawal means the back issue was severe enough that swinging a club became an active liability. Every strategic analyst in the sport is right now recalculating their projections for him.
Which, opens the door for other guys to step up. Now, while the top-tier stars were battling for that $20 million in Florida, the alternate event running concurrently, the Puerto Rico Open, was quietly changing someone's life at the Grand Reserve Golf Club.
Ricky Castillo.
Yes, Ricky Castillo captured his maiden PGA Tour title in just his 35th career start. He shot a 4-round total of 17 under par, a 271, to edge out Chandler Blanchett by a single stroke.
We really need to contextualize why these alternate field events are the lifeblood of the professional ecosystem for the listeners. Castillo winning this tournament is fundamentally transformative. He takes home a first-place check of $720,000, which is fantastic, but
But the money isn't even the best part.
not even close. The financial windfall is arguably the least important part of this victory for a young player.
The job security.
Absolutely. The real prize here is the elite access. By winning, Castillo secures a 2-year exemption on the PGA Tour. That means for the next 2 years, he does not have to worry about Monday qualifiers, he doesn't have to beg tournament directors for sponsor exemptions, and he's stressed about losing his playing privileges.
Plus the FedExCup points.
Banking 300 of those season-long points essentially guarantees his schedule for the rest of the year. Plus, this victory punches his ticket straight into the 2026 PGA Championship. It's a career-altering Sunday. He goes from fighting for survival to planning a long-term trajectory.
That makes perfect sense when you frame it around access. The pressure to secure that access is immense. And speaking of pressure, let's look at the global tours, because the DP World Tour's Joburg Open in South Africa gave us a masterclass in how psychological pressure manifests on a golf course.
Oh, the final round there was wild.
Pure, chaotic theater over the final 6 holes at Outen Golf Club. We had 4 different players either holding sole possession of the lead or sharing it as they came down the stretch.
Houghton Golf Club at altitude is already a tricky puzzle, but when you add Sunday pressure, it becomes a pressure cooker. We saw that perfectly illustrated with Henny Duplessis.
He had it in his hand.
He had a comfortable 3-stroke lead for a significant portion of the final round. But on the 16th hole, the pressure finally cracked him. He makes a devastating double bogey. It is a textbook example of how quickly momentum can evaporate in professional golf. You make one tentative swing, compound the error, and suddenly a 3-shot cushion is just gone.
And when that door opened, Dan Bradbury kicked it down. Bradbury executed a brilliant, incredibly clutch up and down on the 72nd hole to shoot a final round 65.
Such a clutch finish.
He finished at 17 under par, which was just enough to beat Casey Jarvis and Brandon Robinson-Thompson. And the intelligence reports point out that this is Bradbury's 3rd DP World Tour title, and remarkably, his 2nd win specifically at the Joburg Open.
Which tells you something about his comfort level in South Africa. Winning once on a specific layout can be a hot putter, but winning twice shows a fundamental alignment between a player's strategic eye and the architectural demands of the course. He clearly embraces the pressure of that specific swing on the schedule.
Contrast that localized comfort with what we saw over on the LPGA Tour. The Asian swing concluded with the Blue Bay LPGA in China, and we witnessed a deeply emotional victory.
Yang Li.
Yes, she captured her 3rd LPGA title by finishing at 11 under par, holding off a very strong charge from the local favorite, Wei Zhang. But the real story here is that this win snapped an agonizing 8-year winless drought for Li. She walked away with a $390,000 payday, but the look on her face said it was about so much more than the money.
You really cannot overstate the psychological toll that an 8-year drought takes on an elite athlete. Think about how many swing changes, equipment overhauls, caddy swaps, and moments of profound self-doubt happen over nearly a decade.
It has to be exhausting.
To maintain the requisite belief, the grueling work ethic, and the singular focus required to win on the modern LPGA Tour after that much time, it's a massive testament to her internal resilience. It is the ultimate story of perseverance.
It is. And we actually saw a different flavor of that exact same relief narrative unfold at the LIV Golf event in Hong Kong. Jon Rahm finally broke through for a victory.
He had been knocking on the door.
Definitely. Now, obviously, his drought was nowhere near 8 years, but he started the 2026 season with 2 incredibly frustrating runner-up finishes. Getting over the finish line in Hong Kong had to feel like a massive weight being lifted.
It's a different kind of pressure, sure, but it's pressure nonetheless. When you are a player of Rahm's stature, finishing second feels like failing. Securing that win validates his current form and quiets the internal noise.
Let's stick with the players themselves and look at some distinct storylines, specifically focusing on veterans entering new phases of their careers. Because what Zach Johnson just did on the PGA Tour Champions was historic.
Oh, what a debut.
He made his professional senior debut at the James Hardy Pro Football Hall of Fame Invitational. He turned 50 just 2 weeks prior, teed it up, and shot 11 under to win by 4 strokes over Stuart Sink and George McNeil.
It is incredibly rare to win right out of the gate like that. According to the reports, he becomes just the 22nd player in the history of the 50-plus tour to win in their debut event. He took home the $330,000 winner's share, but the broader implication is what this means for the competitive profile of that tour.
You think one debut win shifts the profile of an entire tour?
I do, because of who he is. When a 2-time major champion like Zach Johnson, whose game is built entirely on wedge precision and elite putting rather than raw distance, comes out and immediately dominates a field containing guys like Padraig Harrington, it sets a very clear tone.
It raises the bar.
Exactly. It signals that the class of 2026 aging into that tour is going to raise the baseline level of required execution. He didn't just win, he won comfortably.
That's a very fair point. He clearly came in ready to sprint. But on the complete opposite end of the strategic spectrum, let's analyze Lydia Ko's performance at Blue Bay. She came into the event as the defending champion, yet she finished middle of the pack at 2 under par.
Right.
On the surface, you might look at that leaderboard and assume she just had a bad week. But the intelligence reports suggest we need to look at this through a much wider lens.
You have to contextualize her performance within her broader career pacing. Coming off her historic 2024 season, where she secured her place in the LPGA Hall of Fame and won Olympic gold in Paris, she really has nothing left to prove on a week-to-week basis. The reports indicate she has adopted a highly selective, intentional schedule for 2026.
Geared toward the majors.
Yes, her primary, almost exclusive focus this year is the AIG Women's Open.
Because she wants to complete a second career Grand Slam. But does it actually serve a player to use official competitive tournaments essentially as high-stakes practice rounds? Doesn't that blunt your competitive edge?
Not when you possess the veteran discipline of Lydia Ko. The urge to win every single week is strong, but suppressing that urge to ensure you peak physically and mentally in August is the hallmark of a seasoned champion. A middle-of-the-pack finish in March isn't a failure for her, it is data collection. It is veteran course management applied to an entire calendar year.
That is a fascinating way to look at it. She's playing chess while others are playing checkers. Now, speaking of chess moves, we have to pivot to the business and industry side of the sport. We got our hands on a ruling from the official World Golf Ranking Board, the OWGR, that is going to fundamentally rewrite the next few years of contract negotiations.
This is huge news.
They announced they will officially award world ranking points to LIV Golf events for the 2026 season.
It is a monumental shift in the governance of the game. But as journalists, we have to look strictly at the mechanics of this impartially, based on the reports. The OWGR is not just opening the floodgates and handing out points to the entire field. The points will only be allocated to the top 10 finishers, including ties in LIV's individual stroke play events.
Right, and the context of how this compromise was reached is crucial. To secure these points, LIV Golf made some structural changes back in late 2025. They expanded their events to 72 holes, and they added qualifying spots to create some competitive turnover.
Correct.
Because of those specific structural changes, the OWGR now classifies their events under the category of small field tournaments.
But the tour politics are still heavily in play here. LIV Golf has publicly stated they are displeased with the top 10 limitation. Their argument is that this cap disproportionately harms consistent players who perform at a very high level but finish just outside that threshold.
Say, finishing 12th in a stacked field.
Exactly. They argue that mathematically that performance should carry weight.
Right.
We are not taking a side on whether the cap is fair, but that is the stated position from the tour.
I understand their argument, but if we look at the ripple effects of this compromise impartially, isn't the top 10 cap enough to achieve the ultimate goal? Think about the commercial landscape. You have superstars like Bryson DeChambeau and Jon Rahm, whose massive initial contracts are coming up in the next 1 to 2 years. Before this ruling, their world ranking was in free fall because they had no access to points.
You hit the nail on the head. It is entirely about leverage. Gaining access to OWGR points, even if they are limited to the top 10, gives those specific elite players massive leverage in upcoming negotiations. It provides them with a viable pathway to maintain their world rankings.
Which gets them into the majors.
Exactly. As we know, maintaining a high world ranking is the golden ticket to qualifying for the 4 major championships. When DeChambeau or Rahm sit down at the negotiating table now, they aren't players fading from the official rankings. They hold the keys to their own major access. It changes the power dynamic entirely.
It is going to be incredibly compelling to watch how those contract renewals play out over the next 24 months. Now, I want to briefly touch on performance and equipment analytics before we preview next week. Sticking strictly to the performance data present in the intelligence reports from this week, we see a stark contrast in what it took to win on different tours.
Very different styles of golf.
Right. Bay Hill demanded high-pressure putting and precise iron play just to survive the weekend, whereas the Puerto Rico Open was an absolute birdie fest, with Castillo needing to shoot 17 under just to win by 1.
It illustrates perfectly why players constantly tweak their setups and strategies week to week. But if you are a strategic analyst looking ahead to the first major of the year at Augusta, you aren't looking at the birdie fests. The data points you are isolating right now are Scottie Scheffler's putting metrics and Akshay Bhatia's iron consistency from Bay Hill.
Why isolate those specific metrics over everything else?
Because Augusta National is fundamentally a second-shot golf course with some of the most treacherous, glass-like putting surfaces in the world. You have to be able to control your approach trajectory and speed, and you have to be able to make high-stress putts. Those are the primary performance indicators that translate to success at the Masters. The analytics teams across the sport are tearing down the specific metrics from the Arnold Palmer Invitational to model out who is actually ready for major championship contention.
It really all comes down to who is trending in the right statistical categories at the exact right moment in the calendar. And speaking of the calendar, let's look at the upcoming week because the spotlight is shifting to TPC Sawgrass for the Players' Championship.
The crown jewel?
Yes, the PGA Tour's crown jewel. The stakes are immense. We are talking a full 120-player field, a massive 750 season-long FedExCup points up for grabs, and crucially, 80 OWGR points on the line for the winner.
You cannot overstate the importance of the players. You have guys like Scottie Scheffler and Xander Schauffele coming in as key contenders, both looking incredibly sharp in their recent data profiles. But the looming question, the dark cloud hanging over the entire event, is whether defending champion Rory McIlroy will be healthy enough to play.
Right. After that back injury forced him to withdraw at Bay Hill, his status is the biggest variable on the board.
It is. The entire dynamic of the field, the television broadcast, and the strategic modeling shifts depending on whether the defending champion is in the field and actually capable of swinging a golf club at full speed.
We will certainly be keeping a close eye on the injury reports coming out of Sawgrass. And looking globally, we also need to keep an eye on LIV Golf Singapore. We need to see if Jon Rahm can maintain the momentum from his breakthrough win in Hong Kong.
Especially now that those top 10 finishes come with precious OWGR points attached to them.
Oh.
It is a true test of whether the relief of finally winning turns into a dominant hop streak or if he regresses back to the pack.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into a truly historic week in professional golf, we want to leave you with a broader strategic question to chew on. With LIV Golf finally receiving official World Golf Ranking points, even if that allocation is strictly limited to the top 10 finishers, how will this fundamentally shift the balance of power over the next 2 years?
That is the million-dollar question.
As those massive initial contracts for elite players like Rahm and DeChambeau approach their expiration dates, will this trickle of ranking points be enough to keep them satisfied and secure in their major championship access? Or is this compromise just the very beginning of a much larger structural shift in exactly how the major championships will be forced to assemble their fields in the future?
It is the defining question for the industry right now. The governance models are shifting, the commercial realities are changing, and the elite players hold a very unique amount of leverage.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more daily golf conversations like this, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you daily golf insights and in-depth analysis from around the world.